So it is not... in Boston, they call it dorm-based innovation sometimes to make fun of Silicon Valley because Mark Zuckerberg invented Facebook in his dorm at Harvard. And they say we don't do dorm-based innovation, we do lab-based innovation. So very much like Switzerland in a way.
Welcome back to We Are ETH, telling the stories of the friends and alumni of ETH Zurich, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. I'm Susan Kish, your host. And today in this unique two-part series, we're going to pick up where we left off in our conversation with Benjamin Bollmann, the CEO of Swissnex Brazil. We're going to talk about key themes like the role of COP30 in Belém in Brazil, Switzerland's contribution to global sustainability efforts, and different initiatives driving climate innovation. We're also going to talk about the difference in innovation ecosystems and landscapes between the Bay Area and San Francisco, East Coast with Boston and New York, and Sao Paulo in Brazil, and how those differing ecosystems impact science, technology, and the companies that come out of it. Benjamin, as you mentioned, you've been in Sao Paulo for just over a month. Can you talk about some of the things you're most excited about coming up at Swissnex Brazil? And because this is, with COP30 coming up, a really interesting year to be in this country.
Exactly. It's a very special moment for the country. The country just finished its presidency of the G20 last year. It now has the presidency of the BRICS, and it's gearing up for COP30, the UN Climate Summit, the 30th edition, in the Amazon region, in the city of Belém, state of Pará, in the northeast of Brazil. And so it's a moment where Brazil is really on the world stage, at the center of discussions about the green transition, about climate change. So it's a very exciting moment for Swissnex to try to leverage this opportunity to strengthen our bilateral relationship with Brazil in the field of sustainability and in the field of climate action. So the big moment for us will be COP in November in Belém. It's a very particular edition because it's the 30th. It's symbolically very important because it is taking place in the Amazon. That has a very big role in the regulation of global climate. It also has a very big role in terms of the indigenous communities that live there and the knowledge they have to steward our relationship with nature and what we can learn from them. And so we are going to be there with the official Swiss delegation on the sidelines of the official negotiations. There is in Belém, in the city, a museum called the Göldi Museum. It's named after a Swiss scientist, Emilio Göldi, who was a Swiss naturalist who came to Brazil in the 19th century to study the biodiversity in the Amazon, and then became the director of this museum now called Göldi Museum. And he turned it into basically one of the most important research centers on the Amazon, and museum and zoological and botanical garden as well. So it's a multi-purpose complex named after a Swiss scientist, so it has this Swiss legacy. We are going to be located within the complex of the museum. There is a house called the Göldi House in the middle of the complex where Emilio Göldi used to live and do research. And so we have a plan to renovate that place in the long run. So this is not going to happen before COP, but that's the vision, to turn this place into a center of exchange between scientific knowledge and indigenous knowledge on the Amazon. So we are going to be present in the museum. The Science Ministry of Brazil is going to be with us in the museum complex, as well as the American Development Bank as well. And so this is a very exciting moment. Yeah.
Very, very cool. And it sounds like the team has figured out a really pivotal place for Switzerland to play a role. It's both the history and the angles going forward and the challenges.
Exactly. And we already have a pre-existing, network of contacts in the city of Belém, because we have a program called Next Bio Amazonia, which is all about the bioeconomy of the Amazon, where we bring Swiss and Brazilian researchers and startups together into the Amazon to work on challenges that local producers, they call it the bioeconomy here in Brazil. It's basically agroforestry, or like forest-based products, like medicinal plants, cacao, acai. And these producers are facing supply chain challenges, and basically they are asking for external help, and we work with them in this region to try to find solutions. So we have a pre-existing activity there and network, and we are trying to leverage that also for COP in November, and then beyond COP, just stay there and having a more long-term engagement in the region.
Very, very cool. So you're new in Brazil, and impressions are new, and the environment is new. And you've seen the ecosystem and the innovation ecosystem in Boston, which is not the same as the innovation ecosystem in San Francisco, which is not the same as the innovation ecosystem in Zurich, which today is very different than it was when you left in 2010. Just if you could just name a couple things that distinguish each one of those that you've been able to note as you have worked in each one of them.
Yes, I'm still discovering Brazil, so I have to say I don't know the ecosystem very well, but there is an incredible energy in Brazil right now because of this particular momentum now with COP and with this particular place of Brazil on the global stage. Mm-hmm. You feel there is a lot of ambition in Brazil, especially when it comes to the green transition. Brazil, is in the top 10 biggest economies in the world. It's 200 million people. But it's also the greenest energy matrix among the G20 countries, among the biggest economies. So surprisingly, it's something we don't know about Brazil, but it's the greenest electricity grid among the big countries. It's a particular place they want to become the Saudi Arabia of green energy, as Lula said. So they want to use this green electricity grid to create green hydrogen and export it, for example. They want to create the solutions that the world will be using. So they have, of course, a lot of constraints, a lot of challenges in the local market, but this ambition to be at the center of the green transition with the highest biodiversity in the world in the Amazon. And so that's incredibly exciting, especially in a city like Sao Paulo, where there is this vibrancy and this entrepreneurial spirit, which is something I felt a bit differently in Boston, which is really a hub of science and academia. So Boston for me is really like a center for science and anything entrepreneurial that comes from science. So it's very similar to Switzerland in that way, that the type of innovations that come out of Boston are based on hardcore science and engineering. So those are things that we call sometimes deep tech in Switzerland. In Boston, they call it tough tech sometimes, because it's things like nuclear fusion, biotech, things that need 10 years of research to reach the market. And so it's a very different type of innovation and a type of companies than Silicon Valley. Boston is B2B. So it's about expertise. If you don't have a PhD or nothing, it's open to exchange between experts. You can have coffee with another expert. Silicon Valley is a lot of B2C. It's a lot of digital innovation software. So sometimes I say, in Boston, people are trying to solve real world problems like diseases, like climate change. In Silicon Valley, they are trying to escape the real world because they discovered that you can grow much quicker and you can launch much quicker in the digital world. And so you want to create virtual worlds where everything works much faster, is less friction, and you want to take more money quickly. You want to take psychedelic drugs. You want to go to Mars. So it's all about, if you look at it, it's all about escaping the real world.
Escape is a good word.
And I sometimes call it the church of growth. It's all about growing your startup. So, they have their gods, which are people like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk, or, the big tech CEOs. They have what you could call the churches of Silicon Valley, which are the co-working spaces, and they have their rituals, which are the pitch events, for example. And so it's a very different structure of innovation and type of innovation than deep tech, where it's not that you can put people around the table and they will invent an app that will revolutionize the world. So it is not. In Boston, they call it dorm-based innovation sometimes to make fun of Silicon Valley, because Mark Zuckerberg invented Facebook in his dorm at Harvard. And they say we don't do dorm-based innovation, we do lab-based innovation. So very much like Switzerland in a way. So Silicon Valley is a bit more about marketing, about branding, because it's B2C. It is, the myth is that you have to be a university dropout. But in Boston, if you don't have anything, if you don't have a PhD, you're nothing, in a way. So it's a very, very different type of culture and a different type of innovation back there. New York is yet something else, because New York has everything. And it has the big Fortune 500 companies, the more traditional incumbents that are sucking up this early stage innovation. And it has the marketing industry, the ad industry, the fashion industry. And so there's a lot more industries in a way, also B2C and B2B. It's a big mix. There's biotech, there's climate tech. There's a lot of different things in New York. So that's a little bit how I see the differences.
That was a great conversation. I really appreciated your time and your insights. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So I'd like to close by asking you a couple questions that we ask all our guests. So the first one was, when you were young and growing up in Morges, what did you want to be when you were 8 or 9 years old?
I don't remember. I think I was living in the moment back then.
So you wanted to be a skateboarder?
Not yet. It came when I was 11. But when I was 8, I wanted to have fun mostly, I believe.
And when you were 11, what did you want to be when you grew up?
That's when I started to have an interest in sound, and so I probably developed an interest to become a sound engineer back then.
And what are you curious about these days? Right? What disciplines, what areas of science spark your curiosity?
I'm curious about anything related to sustainability and climate, but on a deeper level than just technological solutions. I'm curious about how we can evolve as a society for this new era where, we have both to fight climate change and even more importantly, to adapt to climate change, because it's going to arrive. Right. And so how can we change our economic system? How can we change our behaviors, our value system for this new era? It feels like in a way, the whole era of modernity that started with the scientific revolution 500 years ago is ending. It feels like we're entering now an big age of confusion, but that we're transitioning to something new, where we see that this idea of scientific progress we had and of the straight arrow of time, where even more, and we could always build more and more and more, and discover more and more, and apply it more and more and more, and use more and more resources. That's ending, and so we have to really reframe things. Every sector, every industry has to move into a new way of thinking. And so I'm interested in discovering the kinds of frameworks and thinking there is out there at the deeper level than just the technological solution. There is something called planetary thinking that a lot of people are now are talking about, which is almost like a philosophical stance, saying the humans, at the end of the day, are not the main actors on Earth. Earth doesn't really care about the future of humans. And so we are just inhabitants of Earth in this thin layer of life that some scientists call the critical zone. There's few kilometers where there are living systems. And we are just part of that among other species, among plants and animals, and among geophysical processes. And somehow we have to find a way to survive and to thrive in this thin layer. And so we have to find a way to coexist with other non-human processes and entities. And that's, so it's about post-anthropocentrism in a way. So a big prominent figure around these ideas is Bruno Latour, French philosopher. So that's something I'm looking into today.
Books. What are the books that you're reading? Because my bet is, as you mentioned earlier, your books are still someplace in a crate, someplace in the harbor. But what other books are you reading right now?
Yes, so I'm reading Bruno Latour, so the person I just mentioned, and he wrote many books, but one I'm reading now is called Facing Gaia: 8 Lectures on the New Climatic Regime. Gaia is the name given to this interconnected system of life in this thin layer on Earth where we live, and this self-regulating kind of system. James Lovelock was the inventor and scientist who came up with this idea to say that our life in the atmosphere even depends on the living systems around us. So right. There is no life without that. And so that's a book about that. Second book I'm reading right now is about a Brazilian architect called Lina Bardi. The book is called Lina Bardi, 100 Brazil's Alternative Modernism. So that's the building I'm sitting right next to right now from her. And I'm interested in seeing how she engaged and thought about nature back then, at a time where modernism was all about concrete and the brutalist type of architecture. And the third book I'm reading is a book in French, originally written in Portuguese. I don't think there is an English edition just yet, but it's essentially the first history book about the Amazon rainforest and the Amazon region. There was no big historical review of the Amazon before, as far as I know. So it's called Amazonie in French, and the author is Marcio Souza, a Brazilian author. So that's something I'm looking into today.
Very cool. So final question. When you go back to Zurich, your adopted home, where do you like to go? What's your favorite place in Zurich?
I like the Wiedikon area of Zurich.
Excellent. Benjamin, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for joining us today. That was a great conversation. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was fun talking to you.
Thank you. I'm Susan Kish, host of the We Are ETH series, telling the stories of the alumni and friends of the ETH Zurich, the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology. ETH regularly ranks amongst the top institutions in the world with cutting-edge science, research, and people. The people who were there, the people who are there, and, of course, the people who will be there. Please subscribe to this podcast and join us on whatever platform you listen. Give us a good rating on Spotify or Apple or YouTube if you enjoyed today's conversation. I'd like to close by thanking our producers at ETH Alumni and LA Media, and especially to thank you, our listeners, for joining us today.